At a family dinner, my sister smiled and said, "Let's be honest. You didn't do anything when Mom was sick." A few people nodded. My dad added quietly, "She carried everything." And just like that, the story was decided. She was the strong one. I was nothing. I sat there, listened, didn't interrupt, didn't defend myself, until I said one thing, then check the records. The room went quiet. The doctor looked up and said something no one was ready to hear. "That's not what I saw. My name is Hannah Reeves. I'm 31 years old." And that dinner was the moment my family realized they never actually knew what happened. Before I tell you what really happened, subscribe and tell me where you're watching from, because this story isn't what it looks like. The dinner wasn't supposed to be important, just family, small, quiet. My mom had been recovering for a few months, and this was the first time everyone was together again. It should have felt like relief, closure, but instead, it felt like a performance, because everyone had already decided who did what. My sister, Emily Reeves, started it. Casual, like a story she'd told before. "I barely slept those months." She laughed softly. "But someone had to be there." People nodded. My aunt reached for her hand. "You were incredible." I stayed quiet, because I knew where this was going. Then my dad added, "Emily stepped up when it mattered." He didn't look at me when he said it, didn't even pause, because in his mind, it was just the truth. And that was the moment I understood. They weren't forgetting. They were rewriting. My sister looked at me directly, smiling, but not kindly. "You kind of disappeared during all that." A few people shifted uncomfortably, but no one stopped her. "We didn't even know where you were half the time." That wasn't confusion. That was accusation. Then she said it. The line that sealed it. "You didn't really do anything." Silence. Heavy. Everyone waited for my reaction, expected defensiveness, excuses, emotion. But I didn't give them any of that. I picked up my glass, set it down slowly, looked at her, then said calmly, "Do you actually believe that?" She didn't hesitate. "Yes." My dad nodded. "We all do." That was enough for me, because in that moment, something shifted inside me. Not anger, not hurt, something quieter. Clarity. I realized they didn't want the truth. They wanted the version that made them comfortable. But I wasn't going to argue. Not like this. I reached into my bag, pulled out my phone, unlocked it, opened one folder, named simply, "Hospital." My sister frowned. "What is that?" I didn't answer her. Not yet. I turned the screen toward the table. These are the records. Dates, times, payments, doctor notes, everything. My dad leaned forward slightly, confused, because this didn't match what he believed. I looked at my sister one last time, then said, "Before you decide what I did, maybe you should see what actually happened." Silence. No one spoke, because something had already shifted. The story they believed was about to break. And there was one more thing they hadn't thought about. Dr. Collins wasn't just my mom's doctor. He was also an old family friend. That's why my dad had invited him that night, to celebrate her recovery. None of them realized he had seen everything. No one touched the phone. No one moved. Then, Dr. Collins, who had been quietly sitting at the end of the table, leaned forward. He had treated my mom during those months, watched everything, said nothing, until now. He looked at the screen, then at my sister, and said calmly, "That's not what I saw." The room froze, because suddenly, This wasn't just my word anymore. My sister blinked. What do you mean? My dad looked between us, uncertain now, because for the first time, doubt entered the room. Dr. Collins didn't rush, didn't raise his voice. He just said, "Your sister was there more than anyone." Silence. Heavy. Unavoidable. My sister shook her head quickly. That's not possible. I was there every day. The doctor nodded slightly. You visited. Pause. But you didn't stay. That distinction changed everything, because visiting and being there are not the same. I tapped the screen once, opened another file. Check the timestamps. Hospital logs, entry records, shift hours. My dad leaned closer now, reading, processing, because numbers don't argue. They just sit there. I spoke quietly. Look at the overnight entries. My sister didn't move, didn't look. But my dad did. And his face changed. Because the pattern was clear. Night after night. The same name. Mine. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't need to. You came during the day. I looked at my sister. When people were around. Pause. I came when no one else did. The room went still. Because that wasn't something you could deny. Dr. Collins added quietly. The hardest hours weren't during visiting time. He looked at my dad. They were at night. Machines. Pain spikes. Emergency calls. Moments no one posted about. No one talked about. Moments no one saw. Except me. I scrolled again. Opened another section. These are the payments. My sister frowned. What does that have to do with anything? I didn't look at her. Everything. Receipts, transfers, medical bills, dates, amounts, all lined up. My dad picked up the phone. Hands slower now. Scrolling. Reading. Stopping. Because every number told the same story. One they had never asked about. My sister's confidence started to crack. Not loudly, but visibly. No one spoke. Not my mom, not my dad, not my sister. Because now, the story they believed was collapsing. And the worst part? It wasn't dramatic. It was quiet. Slow. Undeniable. If you think this is where it ends, it's not. Because what they saw next wasn't just proof. It was everything they ignored. My dad stopped scrolling. His finger froze on one line. $8,420. What is this? I didn't answer immediately. Just let him read it again. Then I said quietly, that was the first surgery deposit. My sister looked confused. Insurance covered that. I shook my head. Not all of it. And that was the moment. The second layer started opening. I tapped the screen again. More entries appeared. Transfers, receipts, dates that lined up with every major treatment. Look at the pattern. My dad's eyes moved slowly now, carefully, because it wasn't just one payment. It was all of them. Consistent, precise, unnoticed. My sister finally asked it, but her voice wasn't confident anymore. Why didn't you say anything? I looked at her, calm. When would I have said it? Silence, because she didn't have an answer. And neither did anyone else. I leaned back slightly. Every time you visited, I looked at her. You were talking about how tired you were. Pause. How hard it was for you. My voice stayed steady. And no one asked anything else. That truth sat heavy in the air. I opened one more file. This one wasn't labeled hospital. It was labeled loans. My dad frowned, scrolling again. Because now, it wasn't just payments. It was debt. I said it simply. I didn't have that kind of money. My sister looked at me, confused. Then how did you? I cut in gently. I borrowed it. Silence. Immediate. Because that wasn't part of their story. I continued. I turned down a job offer. My dad looked up quickly. What job? I met his eyes. The one I called you about. Pause. 3 times. His face changed. Because now, he remembered. You didn't pick up. I didn't say it with anger. Just fact. None of you did. My sister looked down. My dad didn't move. Because suddenly, that night wasn't small anymore. It mattered. I spoke quietly. So I made the decision on my own. Pause. I stayed. Hospital nights, financial pressure, silence. Because someone had to. Now the room understood something deeper. This wasn't sacrifice they saw. It was sacrifice they ignored. My sister's voice cracked slightly. I didn't know. I nodded once. I know. And that was the hardest part. Because it wasn't cruelty. It was absence. And sometimes, that hurts more. If you think this is where it ends, it's not. Because what my mom said next broke everything. Until now, my mom hadn't said anything. She had just been sitting there, quiet, listening, processing. Then finally, she looked up at me, her voice soft, almost unfamiliar. Why didn't you tell me? That question hit harder than everything else, because after everything, that's what she asked. I didn't respond right away, just looked at her, then said calmly, You never asked. Silence. Because that wasn't an accusation, it was a fact. And no one at that table could deny it. She blinked slowly, like something was coming back. I thought Emily was handling everything. I nodded slightly. That's what everyone thought. Because it was easier, cleaner, more comfortable, to believe the visible version. I leaned forward just a little. She was there when people were watching. Pause. I was there when things got real. Machines, late nights, emergency calls, moments no one talks about, moments that don't look strong. My sister shook her head, tears in her eyes now. I didn't know it was that bad. I looked at her, not angry. Because you didn't stay long enough to see it. That wasn't meant to hurt. But it did. Because it was true. Dr. Collins spoke again. Quiet. Measured. Your mother asked for her at night. The room froze. My mom's eyes filled instantly. I did? He nodded. Every time things got worse. And suddenly, this wasn't about records anymore. It was about memory. I swallowed slightly, then said, You asked for them too. I looked at my dad, at my sister. But they weren't there. No anger, just honesty. So eventually, you stopped asking. That landed deeper than anything else. My dad put the phone down, slowly, his voice quieter than I had ever heard it. We didn't know. I shook my head gently. You didn't want to know. That difference changed everything, because not knowing and not asking are not the same. My dad put the phone down, slowly, his voice quieter than I had ever heard it. We didn't know. I shook my head gently. You didn't want to know. That difference changed everything, because not knowing and not asking are not the same. I looked around the table one last time, at the people I had spent years trying to be seen by, trying to be enough for. And for the first time, I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel hurt. I just felt done. If you think this is the end, it's not. Because what happened next didn't fix anything. It ended everything. After everything was said, no one spoke. Not my dad, not my sister, not even my mom. Because there was nothing left to argue. The truth wasn't something they could twist anymore. It wasn't emotional. It wasn't exaggerated. It was documented. And now, it was undeniable. The kind of silence that fills a room when people realize they were wrong the entire time. My mom kept staring at me, like she was trying to understand something too late. Her voice came out soft, almost broken. "You were there? All that time?" I nodded once. No details, no explanation, because she already knew now. Not from me, but from everything she just heard. And somehow, that made it heavier. My sister finally spoke again, but slower this time, careful. I didn't mean to take credit. I looked at her. Calm. "You didn't take it. Pause. You just didn't correct it." That difference sat heavy, because silence can still be a choice. My dad still hadn't moved. His eyes stayed on the table, like looking at me would force him to face something he wasn't ready for. "We thought..." He stopped mid-sentence, because even he realized what they thought didn't matter anymore. I stood up slowly, not dramatic, not emotional, just done. Then I said one last thing. "You didn't think I did nothing." They all looked up. "You just never checked." That was it. Simple, clear, final. "We can fix this." My mom's voice shook slightly. I paused, looked at her. Not angry, not cold, just honest. "It's not broken." Silence. Then I added, "It was never built right." That line stayed in the air, because it wasn't about one moment. It was years. I picked up my bag, didn't rush, didn't look back immediately, because for the first time, I wasn't waiting for anyone to stop me. No one did. Not my dad, not my sister, not my mom. Because now, they knew they couldn't. When I reached the door, I paused for a second. Not because I wanted to go back, but because I realized something. For years, I stayed, waiting to be seen, waiting to be understood, waiting to matter. And now, I didn't need that anymore. Behind me, no one followed. No voices, no excuses, no arguments. Because for the first time, they weren't trying to defend themselves. They were sitting with it. The truth, the silence, the weight of what they missed. I walked out, not crying, not angry, just clear. And as I got into my car, I understood something that stayed with me longer than anything else. I didn't stop helping because I was tired. I stopped because I finally saw the truth. They said I did nothing when it mattered. But the truth is, I was there for everything. They just weren't there to see it. If this story felt real to you, subscribe and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Because stories like this, they don't end loudly. They end quietly. And that's what makes them unforgettable.